Before life began, before even the cosmos took shape, there was light, and there was void. Unfettered by the confines of time and space, the light swelled across all existence in the form of a boundless, prismatic sea. Great torrents of living energy flitted through its mirrored depths, their movements conjuring a symphony of joy and hope. The ocean of light was dynamic and ever-shifting, yet as it expanded, some of its energies faded and dimmed, leaving behind pockets of cold nothingness. From the absence of light in these spaces, a new power coalesced and came to be. This power was the void, a dark and vampiric force driven to devour all energy, to twist creation inward to feed upon itself. The void quickly grew and spread its influence, moving against the flowing waves of light. The mounting tension between these two opposing yet inseparable energies eventually ignited a series of catastrophic explosions, rupturing the fabric of creation and birthing a new realm into existence. In that moment, the physical universe was born. The energies released by the clash of light and void raged across the nascent cosmos, raw matter merging and spinning into primordial worlds without number. For long epochs, this ever-expanding universe, the great dark beyond, broiled in a maelstrom of fire and magic. The most unstable energies coalesced into an astral dimension known as the Twisting Nether. Light and void collided and bled together at the edges of this realm, throwing it into turmoil. Although tangentially linked to the great dark beyond, the Twisting Nether existed outside the borders of the physical universe. Even so, the Twisting Nether's volatile energies would occasionally tear through the veil of the great dark, flooding into reality and warping creation. The cataclysmic birth of the cosmos also flung shards of light throughout reality. These shards suffused the matter of myriad worlds with the spark of life, giving rise to creatures of wondrous and terrible diversity. The most common forms of life to appear were the elemental spirits, primordial beings of fire, water, earth, and air. These creatures were native to nearly every physical world. Many of them reveled in the turmoil that held sway over the early ages of creation. Occasionally, clouds of fractured light gathered and gave shape to beings of far greater power, of far greater potential. Among these were the Naaru, benevolent creatures composed of scintillating holy energies. When they gazed out across the immeasurable universe, they saw a realm of limitless possibilities. The Naaru vowed to use their mastery over holy magic to spread hope and nurture life wherever they could find it. Even more extraordinary than the Naaru were the colossal Titans. Their spirits, known as world souls, formed deep within the fiery core of a small number of worlds. For ages, these nascent Titans slumbered, their energies suffusing the celestial bodies they inhabited. When the Titans finally awoke, they did so in glorious fashion. They did so as living worlds. Cosmic winds howled across their gigantic forms, bodies shrouded in a cloak of stardust, skin crisscrossed with silvery mountain peaks and oceans shimmering with latent magic. With eyes that shone like brilliant stars, they observed the fledgling cosmos and became enraptured by its mysteries. Whereas the Naaru set out to safeguard life, the Titans embarked on a different journey. They wandered the distant corners of the great dark, searching for others of their kind. This grand, far-reaching voyage would one day alter the course of creation and shape the destiny of all living things. This is Chapter 1 Mythos Origins from Chronicle, Volume 1. Now, you guys know I love to read this this particular passage because I think that it tells us quite a few things. The first of which is that it's saying that in this explosion, where light and void clashed and apparently birthed the universe, shards of light, not void but just light, were flung out into the cosmos and slammed into primordial worlds, and it suffused the matter of myriad worlds with the spark of life. So holy light is what leads to the spark of life existing on these worlds, according to Chronicle. That's interesting because I've been saying for a little while now that I think that Anar the Lifebinder is the primary deity behind the acts of the holy light. And And I think that the Naaru wanting to, as it says here, preserve living things whenever possible is a pretty good example of that. That the light seeks to, in a benevolent manner, preserve life whenever possible. However, as it mentions in the beginning of Origins, the light swelled across all existence, and then when it faded, it led to void. Now, I would be concerned that that would be the case that would happen here. But the thing that I'm really wanting to get at here is, it says here, Titans, known as world souls, formed deep within the fiery core of a small number of worlds. The fiery core. I think that's one thing to keep in mind here. These Titans don't just grow, in a nice little perfect temperature incubation chamber or anything like that. According to Chronicle, they're being born of flame to an extent. They're in the fiery core of worlds. Here's the problem. Is that there's one Titan in particular, and the only one that we've ever actually really seen illustrate how they're actually born. There's only one Titan that's ever really shown anybody that, and that was Argus the Unmaker. And he showed Illyria Windrunner. And this comes from the canon audio drama 1000 Years of War. And this was released in Legion. And I'm going to play the bit here for you where you can hear what Argus says to Illyria by portraying his memories to her. And then we can talk about that.
It fought against its bonds, and tremors rippled across the world. Unable to escape, it screamed again. But this time, it tried to communicate. Illyria felt as its raw emotion gave way to something else. Memories. It was sending her its entire lifetime in a single, uncontrolled burst. In that instant, while the corrupted fount of arcane might was upon her, her mind was transported elsewhere. This being was so much more powerful than the minion of the Shadow had been. Then she had witnessed flashes of destiny. Now she lived a history that surpassed the existence of the universe. Blink. It was energy, spinning out into the cosmos. Blink. It found warmth near a sun, and a world formed around it to protect it as it grew. Blink. Generations of life lived and died upon it. Blink. It was betrayed. It was bound by something powerful. Blink. Pain. Pain. It hurt so much. Its only solace lay within its dream. Blink. They enslaved worlds. They burned worlds. They used its strength to revive their fallen souls. It hurt so much. Blink. They found another. It was much more powerful. They wanted to claim it too. Then they would be unstoppable. Blink. It screamed into the cosmos for help. 2 children answered the call. 2 bright lights. Blink. 2 bright lights from Azeroth. A world that was like Argus. Illyria ripped herself free. Now she was lying on her side. Turalyon was shaking her.
Wake up! Illyria, wake up!
So, as Argus shows Illyria with his memories that surpass the existence of the universe, by the way, the world of Argus was not born within it. Argus was sentient enough to remember finding a sun and then falling asleep into, I would only assume, is a dream. And then a world formed itself around Argus to protect it as it grew. The world built itself around Argus. Argus was not born from within a planet. And then generations of life existed on it. I wonder where that came from. Life existed on it, and then life would die and then be reborn or whatever the case may be. And then it was betrayed. It was bound by something powerful. Well, one would assume, based on what you hear Argus showing Illyria, telling Illyria, that it's the Burning Legion, right? They raised worlds, they enslaved worlds, they burned worlds. They used its strength to revive their fallen souls. Okay, that kind of sounds like the Legion. But that one line, it was bound by something powerful. That's interesting. Because the thing about being bound is that Aman'Thul says to Argus, the Unmaker, in the fight when we fight him, "Time answers to me, Unmaker, the one force that can bind your relentless fury." What is Argus? As I've discussed many times in the past, I believe that Argus is the titan of uncreation, shadow, and to an extent, death. Right? I mean, he even carries a scythe. And I think that his fury is the fury of shadow, of death. And so time is the one thing that can bind that, according to the High Father of the Pantheon, Aman'Thul. So either that's not true, or when Argus shows to Illyria that he was bound by something powerful, was it Sargeras that bound him? Because as far as we know, according to Magni, Sargeras is actually connected with Argus. And we can see that illustrated in the fight when we start dealing with mechanics like Sargeras' fear, Sargeras' rage. Which is interesting again because his fear and rage were supposed to be for the Void Lords. But we see that manifesting when we're fighting Argus the Unmaker, a being that could potentially bring about the end of all things. So what am I getting at here? I just think it's kind of weird and a little bit curious how these titans set out on this grand voyage that would alter the course of creation and shape the destiny of all living things. They embarked on a different journey of their own. I just find that interesting. And I find it interesting that somehow Argus had a planet built around him because he was just energy spinning out into the cosmos, right? Well, let's talk about the Titan Pantheon real quick, because they build one particular thing quite a lot. And that is prisons. The Titans seem to be pretty apt to building prisons. They built them for the demons way back when Sargeras was allegedly fighting them. They built prisons for them. They built them for the elemental spirits, the unruly elemental spirits. They built prisons for the old gods. And they just used their own seat of the Pantheon as a prison for one of their own, Sargeras. Well, I don't think Argus was any different, and I don't think Azeroth is any different. The Titan Pantheon seems to specialize in building prisons, even if they don't always work, like the old gods, for example. There are external things that kind of cause that to happen. Whether by design or not, I don't know. But the point is that they really like to build prisons. A lot. And paradise can be a prison if you can't leave. Eventually, one day you'll be there long enough that maybe you start to go mad from it and you'd like to leave, but even paradise can become a prison. And that really makes me think about the Emerald Dream, specifically, because it's meant to be kind of or mortally unflawed, paradise of lush woodland and forest and teeming life and nature magic, and the saturation of spirit energy in the dream is immense. And, man, it would really suck to be stuck in a dream that you could never wake up from. One thing about Chronicle that it also talks about is how the Titans would come to find out if there was a world soul inside of a planet. Now, I want you to listen to this. No one knows when or why the first Titan awoke, but legends hold that his name was Aman'Thul. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I guess we have to just go off of that. Time was the first thing that ever existed. Even before creation itself, I would wager that that's not true. I'd wager that creation came before time. Time has no purpose to exist without the being that is creation itself, if you are to ask me. Though Aman'Thul was alone, he knew in his heart that others of his kind must exist. Thus he explored the worlds of the great dark beyond, intent on finding more Titans. His quest was arduous and lonely, but it was ultimately fulfilling. In time, he discovered other nascent world souls. Aman'Thul lovingly nurtured these newfound kin and roused them from slumber. Those who awakened devoted themselves to his noble search. Those who awakened. Is that to imply that there are some that didn't awaken? Just a curious point there. Aman'Thul and his siblings later became known as the Pantheon. They were benevolent by nature, creatures aligned with order and stability. The Pantheon possessed a natural affinity to the latent magic in the universe. Fully aware of their incredible power, they bound themselves to a code of temperance toward the civilizations they encountered, even those of the unruly elemental spirits. The Titans of the Pantheon came to realize, and I don't know how they came to realize this, but order was crucial to finding others of their kind. On each world they encountered, they employed techniques to ascertain whether a world soul was present. The Pantheon would first pacify the world's raging elemental populations. Then they would reshape the world, forming great mountains, fathomless seas, and roiling skies. Lastly, the Titans would seed myriad life forms across the newly ordered world. In doing so, the Pantheon hoped to call forth the world soul and help bring it to maturity. Most of the time, however, the worlds visited by the Titans proved inert. The Pantheon vowed to maintain and protect all of these worlds, even those that did not contain a slumbering spirit. To do so, they empowered primitive life forms to uphold the integrity of their ordered worlds. The Pantheon also embedded colossal machines in the surfaces of the worlds that they had shaped. Through these devices, the Titans could monitor their worlds and purge them of life should their evolutionary paths succumb to disorder. To aid the Pantheon, Aman'Thul called upon a mysterious race known as the Constellar. These celestial beings observed the many worlds ordered by the Titans, staying vigilant for any sign of instability. When it was necessary, the Constellar could initiate a fail-safe procedure to scour life from a world in the hopes of resetting its evolutionary process. Something I think could happen to Azeroth, even though we stopped it in Ulduar. Over the ages, the Pantheon discovered fewer and fewer world souls, yet they remained undaunted. They knew that the universe was vast beyond measure, and even after epochs of exploring the stars, they had only plumbed but a small corner of creation. Again, I don't know that I believe that. Unbeknownst to the Titans, malign forces were also hard at work in the distant reaches of the Great Dark. So the Titans had to install these machines. They had to shape the whole world, seed it with myriad life in order to ascertain, to find out if a Titan world soul was present inside of a world, and then they hoped to bring it to maturity. But oftentimes, the worlds proved inert. See, there's a curious thing about that, because in this very same book in Chronicle, it says that Sargeras, as he approached that world that was infected by the old gods, allegedly, he could hear the tranquil dreaming within. Then it turned to nightmares, and you know the story from there. The same thing with Agrimar. He was led to Azeroth by the Song of Life, by the way, and he could hear the world soul dreaming within. So if Agrimar and Sargeras can hear these world souls dreaming, why does the Titan Pantheon need to employ these tactics to ascertain whether or not a world soul is present? And are they only able to hear the dreams of this Titan after the Titans have already fumbled with that world? Is the Emerald Dream, we'll say, is that a necessity in order for these Titans to be able to be heard dreaming? Now, there's a couple different references to dreaming in Chronicle. In fact, when Sargeras finds the world that's completely covered in the old gods, it says that he had never dreamed that void energies could so horrifically, consume a Titan. He never dreamed that this could happen. But the proof was right before his eyes. So I'm curious, why is it that the Titan Pantheon has to do all of this? Why do they have to change the world as it exists when they arrive, right? Because if what we're being told is true, to the natural order of the universe, from these cataclysmic explosions that led to the birth of these physical material worlds, some of the first life forms that appeared were the elemental spirits, and they are supposedly unruly. They're chaotic, right? They fight. That is the nature of elements. Think about our real life. The elements aren't ruly and kind and orderly. They don't give a shit. You get slammed by a hurricane. Maybe you get taken out by a tornado. An earthquake happens, a volcano erupts. They're not ruly. They're not orderly. But the Titans would want them to be so. And how do the Titans, do you suppose, get them to do that? Well, in Chronicle Volume 2, it says that the spirit of life, which saturated Draenor, caused the elements to be passive. They were pacified. They were not chaotic in any capacity. And so they're basically, the spirit of life is basically pacifying these and orchestrating peace. It's like forcing peace. It's like a drug. They like basically put the elementals on drugs, and then they don't do anything that the Titans wouldn't want them to do. That's kind of weird. So the Titans come around to what is naturally there, and they disrupt what was naturally occurring. And I'm supposed to sit here and believe that the Titans want the natural order for the universe? I don't think so. I don't really think so. But let's move on. What about these worlds? So from the birth of the cosmos, shards of light were flung out. Remember that. And they slammed into worlds, suffusing them with the spark of life. From these worlds, Titans were born. Is that to say that Titans are literally born of shards of light? Because in that case, when it says, sometimes clouds of fractured light gathered and gave shape to beings of far greater power and far greater potential, known as the Naaru, who set out to safeguard all life, it makes you wonder, what are those clouds of fractured light? These are nebulae, but you get the point. They're basically space clouds, right? The Titans. Sometimes they gathered and gave shape to these beings. Oh, that's really curious. So what are you getting at, Pyromancer? What about Azeroth? Where's all this going? The Titans build machines on these worlds to suffuse them with energy. You know, it says on the Wowpedia page and in Chronicle that they were infusing Azeroth with cosmic energy. But she's a Titan. Did they do that to Aman'Thul? Did Aman'Thul have that happen to him? Did they... Think about this. Was Aman'Thul's planet ordered? Oh, I very much doubt that it was. Was Aenar's ordered? I get this weird feeling that it wasn't. When did the ordering start and why did they begin doing it? Because it's funny, in Chronicle it doesn't specify in what order any of the other Titans woke up, which is pretty crucial information, all things considered. And it doesn't talk about when or why exactly they decided that order was crucial to finding more of their kind. I also want to throw out there once again that it's often perceived that arcane is order. It is not. Even if that's what the fucking cosmology map in this book tries to tell you, it is not. The arcane is inherently chaotic, easily malleable and manipulated. It is a pretty volatile magic in general, and it's incredibly addictive as well. It is not orderly. But you know what is orderly? The light. Think about the abilities of paladins. I brought this up before. Long arm of the law. Retribution. Think about the names of these things. Execution sentence. I've talked about the whole law and order of things before, and it's starting to seem more and more to me, especially as we hear quotes like, "In the light we are one," when all is in the light and everything is one. That's about as orderly as you can get, right? So the light seems to be the code of order that the Titans, in my opinion, are using on these worlds. And Azeroth is no different. And Argus and Azeroth are similar in a couple different ways. They're both immensely powerful. They're both immensely old. Incredibly old. If you were to ask me, two of the oldest Titans, I think Azeroth is the very oldest Titan, and what it's saying about Aman'Thul in here is not true. But I do think that something put them to sleep, put them into a stasis. And I think that was the Titan Pantheon. So what I'm trying to say is this infrastructure that exists on our planet, all these huge Titan facilities, even those that are hidden, have been kept from prying eyes that I would assume, not supposed to ever find. These Titan facilities are not supposed to be here. Because apparently, the old gods came, and so the Titans needed to change Azeroth and change everything that it was. Well, the old gods had established an entire empire. They had royalty. Think about the Silithid. Think about what you saw in Ahn'Qiraj. They have emperors and empresses. They had entire societies built. They waged war on one another, according to Chronicle. Or not according to Chronicle, actually. It wasn't even Chronicle. It's actually according to Xal'atath. Chronicle, I don't think Chronicle even says that they fought each other. But that's not really the point. They had their territories that they occupied. They had it divvied up, and each of them had their own kind of domain that they ruled over. This seems very weird to me, considering that the story is that these Void Lords created these old gods, which are basically forms of life, by the way. And they existed and fought among one another while trying to corrupt a world soul. It doesn't add up. Why are they fighting each other? Why did they go through the whole process of establishing entire empires if they were only sent out to do one thing, and that was to infect a world soul? You see why I'm saying that the shit doesn't really add up to me? The actions, according to in contrast with the motive, doesn't make sense. And it never has, to me. And so Sargeras takes his giant sword of death, and he stabs it into the planet. And we have Azeroth bubbling up. We know that the infrastructure in Silithus specifically, in the heart chamber, is starting to break. It's starting to crack. It's a seal that is, being broken. And we, following Magni, the King of Diamonds has been made a pawn of the Titans, if you ask me. We follow him and we try to repair this machinery. We try to keep Azeroth stabilized, but whatever we're doing is not working according to the upcoming quest lines. It's not working. We're not healing the world. The inevitable end of this world is approaching us, and people are kind of afraid of it. But what I'm trying to say is that sword did a lot more than just stab into our planet. Because I think that the sword is meant to an extent, break the seals, break the foundation, break what is built around the center of this world. Let's talk about Argus real quick. What happened when Argus woke up? Nothing. Nothing happened. He did not wake up as a walking world. He did not stand up with mountaintops atop his back and shimmering eyes and latent magic flowing across him in the cosmic winds. No, he woke up as from what we can tell, this seemingly metallic, if you will, almost manufactured looking body that seems to be kind of titanic in design, and he has stakes shoved through his body. I don't know if it was Sargeras that did that. I don't know. I have no idea who made Argus look like that. Who came and visited the Draenei, I assume, and seeded that world with life and started that foundation. Who built the world around Argus? What built a planet around another Titan? My only answer is another Titan. Other Titans did that. And so thinking about this ordering of these worlds, the purging of life should it succumb to disorder, what are they going to purge it with? They're going to purge all life. Is it going to be with the light? When you re-originate a planet, do you bathe it in light and just forcefully order the whole world? You just basically light forge the whole world? Because that sounds pretty terrifying. It's interesting because in an interview with Alex Afrasiabi, which I've brought up many times as well, he says that one day he hopes that we can go to the other, to the void and see the horrors that the light has wrought within that world and see worlds crystallized in the pink and blue crystals of the Naaru. What? We have one of the lead devs saying that? Whole worlds crystallized? What the fuck? And yet we still somehow are trusting the Naaru? We're still somehow allowing them into our ranks to do things like bring back people that have died as light-forged, light-bound undead? We're still trusting them after these weird light crusades that they're starting to perform over on alternate Draenor? If alternate Draenor even exists anymore at this point, as we know it. If the light hasn't already completely taken over it since the Maghar scenario. This is not good. What's happening is so bad. And what I think is this. I think the Titans bound our world too. I think they put her into a prison. And I think that this world that we walk on is a prison for creation. And I think that the reason Sargeras tried to fuck this world up is because he wanted to fix it. He wanted to break it. Cleanse what is inside. By fire be purged, right? Fire is generally known as a pretty cleansing force. One of the most cleansing and symbolic ways of dying. By fire. Being burned to ash and everything, all of your defects and all of your problems are washed away in the flame. Yeah, it's kind of sucks because it would suck to die by being lit on fire, of course. I'm sure we know that. I think there's any debating that. It'd be kind of horrible. But like I've said before, death in the WoW universe is not the end. It's not the end. We're going to find that out here pretty soon. There's some quotes from some other games that I recently came upon that I found absolutely fascinating. You guys want to hear one of them? It's from the Tale of Thunderlord. The origins of Thunderlord from Destiny. You guys want to hear? Listen to this. They rest quiet on fields afar, for this is no ending but the eye. From the space between I come, fragments of stars burn in my footsteps. In my hands I hold death. I am one with the flame, the conflagration reborn. I am your funeral pyre. They return from fields afar. The eye has passed. The end nears. Do not fade quietly. Let thunder reign again. Two they were, artist and scientist. Music flowed in their souls and rained from their lips. Not weapons of war they made, but instruments of peace. The thunder fell, and they were cast apart. Their love was sundered as the world collapsed. They sang in pain and sought to reunite, but crimson eyes glowed in the dark. Their union was not to be. He held death in his hands. Stars burned in his footsteps. In her, the conflagration was reborn. The funeral pyre lit. And so forever after, their love fuels death. Their last words a curse and a cry. Their names are now lost, but their love will not die. And this is obviously about Thunderlord, Nova Mortis, and Abaddon if you are familiar with the Destiny lore. However, when you hear things like, he held death in his hands, stars burned in his footsteps. In her, the conflagration was reborn, the funeral pyre lit. Does that not remind you of Sargeras? He held death in his hands, and stars burned in his footsteps. That is a perfect fucking description for Sargeras. He's literally wielding a sword of death, stars burning in his footsteps, and within her the funeral pyre is lit. The world will be reborn in flame. It's like a passing of the torch. If you think this titan within our planet's not going to wake up as some flaming radiance, you might be surprised at what's coming. You may be surprised. And my point that I'm really getting at is that the story that Chronicle tells you about the Void Lords sending out old gods because they want to corrupt these sleeping world souls, I don't think that's true. I think the truth is that the Titans are the ones that wanted to corrupt. They're the ones that wanted to imprison and seed their order on these worlds. And in a massive act of hubris, which is excessive pride to the point of arrogance, it is a sin in the Greek mythology. Hubris among the gods is required to be brought to justice by the penalty of death. And in death, you let your pride and your arrogance go. And in a way, you can be reborn, cleansed of that. Your pride. All that stands in our way is pride. The theme of pride in BFA is pretty damn prevalent. It's everywhere. Zandalari. Proudmore. Seriously. Think about the light. It's one of the most proud forces that you can think of. You know, the Titans were so proud. They thought that they could actually purge pride out of mortal beings and potentially even out of themselves with the holy light. You guys know that? In the Siege of Orgrimmar, in the Amalgamation of Corruption room, Norushen, which is a Titan Keeper, uses the light to try to purge your pride out of you. How fucking prideful to think that you could purge that out of yourself. In the Shah, manifestations of that. Manifestations of such overbearing pride, fear, anger, hatred, that they become real. You know, everyone seems to think that the Shah come from Yasharaj. The Shah live within you. They are negative traits and emotions that are made physically manifest when you try to purge them out with shit that should never be used to try to purge them out. It's said that in Yasharaj's last breath, he breathed out the Shah, and that's where they came from. The Titans have committed hubris, and the flame of divine retribution, in the Greek mythology known as Nemesis, who tried to bring them to justice for what they did, yeah, they just imprisoned him with them, the seat of the Pantheon. And if we think that there's no way the Titans can get off that seat, oh man. We got another thing coming. They're not imprisoned there. Mark my words. How dumb is it? They would lock themselves to their own seat unless they only had one last thing left to do. One final step. They build prisons, and we're in one. And Azeroth is in one. And I think that that's the Emerald Dream. And it needs to be undone. Now. Needs to be over. She needs to wake up, because we don't have that much longer until the forces of the light and until the Titans reign here again. And as N'Zoth says, only I can save you from what is to come. What is coming? What has N'Zoth foreseen? Because whatever it is, I think it's going to be a lot worse than the Black Empire ever was. And we will find out when it is time. And that's it. This world, I think, is a prison. And right now, we're walking headlong into one as well. And if we don't side with N'Zoth, if this doesn't turn in our favor somehow, if we're, as N'Zoth says, the ones to turn the tide, we might find some very surprising allies in Queen Ashara and N'Zoth. But we'll just have to see. That's it. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please do hit that like button, as it's the best way to know that you enjoyed the content. It's the best way to support me here on the YouTube channel. And subscribe if you're new to my channel, if you'd like to hear more stuff like this in the future. I'd love to talk about more of this. This is something I've wanted to talk about for a little bit, though, because I just think that a lot of things point to it. And I'm excited and a little bit afraid of what's coming next. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you very much. Stay awesome, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.